Hello and welcome. I'm Morgan Anderson, one of the college outreach coordinators at Midstate Technical College. I'm excited that you joined us for Midstate's Stay on Track webinar series. Today, you'll have the opportunity to hear from one of Midstate's experts about credit for prior learning and our college process for awarding credit for life experiences. I'm going to ask that you mute your microphone, and if you have questions, you can use the chat feature. I'll make sure to watch that throughout the webinar. I have the pleasure of introducing Alex Lendved, Dr. Alex Lendved, I should say. Alex has been a Midstate employee for 10 years. She started as an administrative assistant and has held multiple positions within grants, credit for prior learning, advising, and most recently, she accepted the position as the Dean of the Marshfield campus. Prior to working at Midstate, Alex was active duty in the Army. She served in the 82nd Airborne Division as a combat medic. She was deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom 7 and 8. Alex is a proud alum of Midstate's business management program. She earned her bachelor's degree in management and a master's degree in leadership, along with a postmaster's certificate in leadership and accountability. Most recently, she completed her doctorate in education with an emphasis in higher education leadership and management. It's a mouthful, Alex. Alex volunteers as a firefighter and emergency medical responder with the Chile Fremont Fire and Rescue. And in her free time, she enjoys trap shooting and fishing, along with hanging out with her son Aiden and husband John by their pool or playing outside. Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Morgan, and hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining tonight. I hope to share just a little bit about my journey as a veteran learner and how Midstate has helped me through that pathway, and then share with you some of the amazing opportunities for both credit for prior learning, CLEP, DSST, etc., all of those different opportunities to earn credit outside the traditional classroom. So as Morgan had mentioned, I was a medic in the Army, and then after I got out of the Army, I started at Midstate Technical College and started my educational journey in the business management program in 2010. So that process was pretty seamless for me. I worked with an advisor who really personalized my path. I was using the post 9/11 GI Bill, and I wanted to take advantage of the housing stipend that came along with that. So she really took the time to understand how many credits I needed and in what format to make sure that I was getting the most out of my benefits. So I was grateful for that because I did not understand my benefits at that time, but she did, and she walked me through that. I was able to pull up my joint services transcript, which all military members have or have a similar model. Air Force has something a little different, but it's the same concept. So we looked at my joint services transcript and we were able to just identify courses or competencies that I already completed just based on my military service. So I was grateful for that. It helped save me money and, increase or decrease my time to graduation. So I was thankful for that. Just going back to that process and how personalized it was. Again, my experience as a medic, I didn't go into the medical field. So it wasn't as perfect of a transition directly to business because again, I came from the medical field. So it was nice to know that someone had my best interest in mind. Understanding that I needed some more time to take those business classes, again, coming from the medical side. So I appreciated that. So with that, I am going to share my screen and we'll look at our website and just walk through those personalized opportunities and what Midstate can do for veterans in those different avenues. So I'll share my screen right now with you. So this is our screen, mstc.edu. This is the home page. I decided to start here just so you can see exactly how to get to the resources that we have available to you on our website. However, if you have questions or you're not comfortable on our website, just know that we have advisors, counselors, outreach coordinators, etc., all here for you to make sure that you're on the right path. So I just hovered over to future students and right over here, services and credit for prior learning is what we'll be talking about today. Now, credit for prior learning encompasses many things. So when we think of veterans and their experiences, we often think about the experiences they had and how that can translate to credit. But credit for prior learning also talks about transfer credit. It talks about testing out, so maybe advanced placement tests, CLEP, DSST, and things like that. So all of that information can be found on this website. So with credit for prior learning, there's just a snippet here on how to contact someone if you have questions, but just a little snippet about what credit for prior learning is. So I'll just start with a quick snapshot of transfer credit because it's right here. Transfer credit, again, Midstate awards and evaluates transfer credit from a regionally accredited institution, and it is based on your program. And I'll go more into that here in a little bit. So just know if you have credit from somewhere, so if you were in the military and you took advantage of some learning opportunities at a different college, just know that we can evaluate those too. Standard examination, this is when we talk about our CLEP, so our college level exam program. So CLEP is big both in high schools, but also in the military. So just know that we can evaluate your CLEP exams. We can also look at AP. But Dantes or DSST, it was Dantes when I was in, it was a little while ago, but we do have those exams and we can evaluate those for your program. So this just shows all of the courses that we can evaluate. So the Midstate Technical College course, and then the exam title that you maybe took for here's CLEP, we have AP, and then DSST. So in the military, or if you're on active duty right now and you want credit, you just need your military ID and you can take that test at Midstate, or we can look at transferring if you've already taken these somewhere else. So this is available to you as a resource, and we can work through that. Okay. One second here. It popped out for me. That's okay. It's easy to get to. mstc.edu, credit for prior learning. Okay, so that was credit by a standard exam. And now we'll get into the meat of this, the military training and service experience. So we do have, or again, we look at your joint services transcript, or again, if you were in the Air Force or another branch that has like the Air Force Academy or community college, we can evaluate that as well because they are accredited. So our military credit page, it's got a nice, beautiful American flag there. So our military experience credit just kind of walks you through the pathway. Most of the time when I worked with veterans, and I had the opportunity to work with a lot of veterans during my time as a credit for prior learning, or as when I was a credit for prior learning coordinator, most of the time I would ask them, number one, what's your program? The way Midstate evaluates all credit for prior learning is that we look at your program and transfer in the credits that are needed specifically for your program. It's important to know that, you know, we know that you have other experiences, but they may not go directly to your program. So we won't be awarding credit for like civil engineering if you're going into medical assistant. And that's to help you with your federal financial aid if you're using that, to make sure that you don't have more than 150% credit awarded and things like that. We can have a conversation, or your advisor can have a conversation with you about that, but just know, we know you have experiences, but we want to make sure that it all goes towards your program. So again, college credit for military training experience, we evaluate that experience based on your joint services transcript. And that's where we'll start. With your joint services transcript, those are easy to request, and we have the links down here. So again, you can go to the joint services transcript page and you can send them officially and directly to Midstate through that. And we do have the Community College of the Air Force link down there. So you can request your Air Force transcripts that way as well. And they'll go directly to our credit for prior learning coordinator to start that process to evaluate your credit. So to get started, again, you select that program, you can send over your joint services transcript, or you can start with a conversation with your advisor either way, the process is the same. Make sure you get that joint services transcript on the way. And then we'll look and reflect on the classes or the experience that you've had to see how it can translate into your program. And it's really important for you to take a reflection on your experiences and look at that program just to see, hey, I have a little bit in this one class, say like supervision. I have a little bit of experience in this, but I'd really like to take that class because those classes can then help prepare you for your next level classes. So again, important to get credit for your experiences that you have, but also to make sure that you're in a class and a program that you're comfortable with. So joint services transcript, looking at that, reflecting on your knowledge and skills. And then the next step is really personalized. You may have a conversation with the dean or the faculty. You may test out. You may do a variety of different items to validate that experience. So just be prepared for that. And usually it's very conversational and we're just here to help you through the process.
Hey, Alex, would you mind creating a new tab and just reopening the page? It's looking like some people aren't able to see the page we're on right now.
Okay, sure.
Gotta love technology.
I know, sorry about that. Stand by, Morgan. I'll do this. This could help. Maybe not. All right. Now let's open back up. How's that?
I can see it fine. Let's just see the chat. We're good. Thank you.
We're good. Yep. Sorry about that, folks. So again, military experience credit page, it walks you through step by step how it works, how to get started, who to contact, and again, those links down on the bottom to be able to request your military transcripts. Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard are one, and then the Community College of the Air Force is another. Morgan, I know you're monitoring the chat. Are there any questions specifically towards the military experience credit process?
Right now, we are good on questions. Actually, one just came in. Is there a limit on how many credits one can receive?
Yep, and that actually goes for all credit for prior learning. So one can earn up to 75% credit towards their degree completion. So, that's quite a bit when we're talking about, a 60 credit program, but you must complete 25% of your program here at Mid-State to be able to then for us to graduate you from Mid-State. So that's a good question. And that goes for all credit for prior learning.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, you bet. All right, so I'm just going to skip back to the credit for prior learning page. Again, pretty easy to get to here. And the credit for military training and or service is very similar to the credit for work and life experience. Again, it's a personalized process to go through this. We look at skills and knowledge that you've gained or competencies that you've gained through your personal experiences. So again, talking with your advisor, talking with your outreach coordinator, and then maybe just as simple as having a conversation with the dean and or faculty, and you are good to go. When I scroll down here, again, the steps are listed here, 1 through 7. But again, we're here. It can be confusing to some because this is not, this is new to folks. Just know that we're here to help you through every step of the way.
Alex, we had a few more questions pop in.
Okay.
So if someone were to get credit for prior learning at Mid-State and then transfer to another school, how would that transfer into the other school?
That's a good question, Morgan. So it depends on the school. So just like when Mid-State evaluates transfer credit, we have to evaluate the accrediting by, or we have to evaluate who that college is accredited by. So we traditionally accept transfer credit from anyone who is regionally accredited and the student has earned a C or better. Experience will show up on a transcript as EX credit, so there will not be a grade assessed. It'll just show up as EX. There are some colleges that will accept it, and there are some that will not. And honestly, that's a conversation with the incoming college. We hope that they would, because we do our due diligence to make sure there's the competency associated. But every college has a different view on if they will accept it or not.
So it would be best for that student to reach out to the admissions office at their new school.
Yes.
Okay.
The one good thing, we have a ton of articulation agreements. I think we have over 100 articulation agreements. And some of those articulation agreements go where if you've been awarded an associate's degree at Midstate, they will give you that block of credits, and sometimes that's 60 or even 63 credits. So if they accept that block because you've completed that associate degree, the EX credit doesn't hurt that. You're still awarded that associate's degree just like any other student.
Okay. And then one other question is, if we need to take an exam, where do we take that, or how do we schedule it?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So every exam can be different. Some may be multiple choice, some may be completed on Blackboard or things like that. It depends on what type of exam you're taking. So if you're taking an exam that is being proctored by a faculty member, usually we do everything we can to just make sure we're meeting the student where they are. So say you have a Marshfield student who wants to take the test in Marshfield, we can usually accommodate that request as long as we're not taking a specific test that needs to be done in our testing center. Does that answer that question, Morgan?
And if it was in the testing center, they would be guided through the process with either an outreach coordinator or their advisor.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. And how to set that up. I did want to highlight, prior learning. Okay, so prior learning assessment is often used synonymously with credit for prior learning, but that assessment can take time by the faculty member, and so sometimes there are fees associated with that type of testing or that type of assessment, and those are standardized. So that is throughout WTCS or Wisconsin Technical College System. These are pretty standard. So to do a test, this is usually just a test out, like we were talking about, Morgan. That is about $50, or that is $50. Skills demonstrations and a full portfolio traditionally are $90, and that is per course, not per credit. So just know that there are sometimes testing and or skills demonstration fees that are associated with credit for prior learning. Now, one neat thing I did see while I was working as credit for prior learning, sometimes these fees are paid by the employer, or they're sponsored by someone. So that's a really nice or neat conversation you can have, because sometimes your employer wants you to complete the program sooner. So this is just a really neat way to complete the program sooner, and it is more cost effective than paying for a full credit bearing course.
Alex, can financial aid be used to cover the cost?
Traditionally, no. So federal financial aid can traditionally not be used to pay prior learning assessment fees. There are some other, like if you're working with Sponsor a Scholar or a scholarship or some other type of sponsorship, at times they will, but federal financial aid, as most of us know it, cannot pay for that.
Thank you.
And way down here at the bottom, I do want to point out that there is an appeals process. So just like many things, sometimes, folks want to have another conversation, or they're not 100% satisfied with a process or an outcome. There's always that opportunity to have another conversation and maybe submit more documentation or take another attempt at a test or a skills demonstration, and that would go through our appeals process. And again, that is just a really individualized process as well, that will work with the person evaluating the credit and the student, and just have that conversation and resubmit documentation as that goes. Okay, so that that is my credit for prior learning conversation. Again, I just really want to reiterate, and I know I've said it a few times, but I'd like to just, continue to share that every veteran, every student, everyone that comes through Mid-State's doors has a different life experience or are in a different part of their journey. And both our credit for prior learning and our normal admissions process with outreach coordinators and advising is a personalized experience to make sure that every student gets on their own journey, their own path based on their life experiences. So as we look at credit for prior learning, it just is another way to show that we're committed to the personalized experience, both past, present, and future, to get students on their path.
Alex, at what point should a student determine what program that they're looking in, or when is an application needed?
So in credit for prior learning world, an application to a specific program is needed prior to any credit for prior learning being awarded. That includes transfer credit and credit for prior learning, military experience, etc. Again, it is important that the student is assigned that program so that we're evaluating credit for that specific program. Again, we can't award civil engineering if we had an engineer in the military, but then they're going into medical assistant, we can't award that engineering credit. And that's just to keep the credits down. We're not in the business of just awarding credit because, that just makes the transcript fuzzy and it could have implications on federal financial aid, depending on the number of credits.
And you talked a little bit about how a student could do maybe a portfolio or other ways besides just a written exam to earn credit. But how is that determined?
That is determined by the class. So I'll take early childhood for an example. Early childhood has some credit for prior learning opportunities, but every class is a little different and it's highly regulated. So in early childhood, some students need to have specific certifications to be able to work with children. So through that portfolio process, these students are able to show that they've completed those specific certifications. They're able to show learning plans that they've established for students, maybe nutrition plans, all of those things. So it's not just a test out, there's multiple competencies that these students need to show and able to be awarded that credit. Whereas medical terminology, that's a very, I don't know, I took medical terminology, it's not very easy, but it's just very, black and white. Medical terminology is medical terminology. So that type of class may lend itself better to being more of a written examination. So every course is different, how that goes.
How many times would you be able to take an exam, or is there a process with an appeal for a test or a grade?
Yes, so the CPL appeal process would go along the same avenue as, so if someone took a test and maybe they weren't successful the first time, it depends on that conversation with that dean and that appeal process to see if another attempt would be awarded. Now, again, if there was a document that was missing or just something else that like, hey, you were really close, we just need to brush up on this. Usually that'll just be a conversation back and forth and then another attempt. But it does go back to that individualized dean and that student and or faculty member to have that conversation.
Okay. And if a student needed accommodations or requested accommodations, is that possible?
Yes, that's available to all of our students. So we have disability services coordinator, and that disability services coordinator at Midstate works with all students, and the CPL process is the same. So if we have students who have anxieties or fears around testing or other things that may hinder them from taking a test, we would just work with that disability services coordinator to make sure that we can offer the exam and or skills demonstration in a way that's comfortable and accessible to every student.
Okay. So I apply for a program, and
yes.
At what point do I make the payment to have my transcripts reviewed or my experience reviewed?
Yes. Well, which program are you going to, Morgan? Let's make this a fun thing.
Let's say nursing.
Okay, so it's actually for any program, I just was being silly. So to evaluate transfer credit, there is no cost for that. There's no cost to take a peek at a transcript or anything like that. The cost comes into play when we're awarding the credit for life experience, either via a portfolio or an exam or a skills demonstration. And again, transfer credit can usually be evaluated quite quickly based on, the accrediting body of that institution as well as the grade earned. Whereas there's a little bit more process and people involved during the skills demonstration test and or portfolio. So that will be due before credit's awarded.
And do transcripts need to be official?
You bet. So all transcripts, including your joint services transcript, do need to be official. Now, we trust our students, we always do, but it's a regulating policy that we have to make sure that they are officially from that institution. So students it's best if students can physically mail them to our CPL coordinator or the person that processes those, or we accept them electronically, and or they can drop them off, but it does have to be in a sealed envelope. So if you do have your transcript sent to you personally or to the student personally, just make sure you do not open that envelope.
Jackie, or I'm sorry, a question just came through from Jackie, Alex. What if we're having trouble getting a hold of a previous employer or the business is no longer around? Then what?
Yeah, we've experienced that before because some students have to or decide to come back to school after maybe the business has closed or things like that. So if we cannot get an employer verification, which is part of the process, we can move forward. And again, it's a part of that conversation. We take the resume and any job descriptions that maybe you saved or you had from when you applied to that position. We can look at those and years of experience. So again, if an employer verification is absolutely not available, we can move forward and evaluate without it.
Is there an exception to pre-approval for CPL? The student doesn't want to apply until they know they're going to receive that credit.
So I've worked with students where we've done a package, and that's a really good question because right now we have adult students that are coming back and our veteran students that are coming to college, and they want to know they want to know what they're getting prior to signing on the dotted line, right? Signing up for classes. So we can look at it. The only trouble would be we can't officially award that credit until we have the application and all of that done, as well as that payment. So I've worked with students quite often, actually, that wanted to know that information prior to signing up. So we can, but nothing is official until it's paid for and posted on that transcript. But yeah, it's fine to look. It's fine to have the conversation.
Great. Are there any other questions for Alex? No. Oh, here comes one. Does the credit ever go away?
Does the credit? So it doesn't. And that's the same for your experiences. So I'm glad that was brought up. So just like any college credit, once you earn it, you earn it. The only caveat that I will throw in there is technology. So if you're in IT world and you took a class 10 years ago, it's very hard to know that class will now be relevant or still be relevant because technology changes every day. So that is the only caveat. You'll still be awarded the credit. It doesn't expire in any fashion, but just know we want you to be successful in your program. So if like IT or some medical courses, some of those may need to be updated or take another peek at them, just to make sure that you're prepared both for the workforce and for your next level classes.
Great. Is there a required number of years that someone would need to work in order to receive the credit?
Short answer is no. But you do want to make sure that the experience and the competencies are there. So if you were in a job for 1 year, you have experiences, right? There are things that we can validate and look at for you, but it'll be very different than someone in that same position for 10 years. It just may be, it may be more of a conversation or more of a skills or a hands-on demonstration. Whereas if we see you've been at the same employer in the same position, doing the same job every day for 10 years, it's just a little easier to validate.
Any other questions for Alex? She's ready to answer. Alex, do you mind sharing a little bit more about your story and maybe how many credits transferred over? Are you comfortable doing that?
Yeah, well, it's been a little
To put
while.
you on the spot.
10 years, Morgan. It's been 10 years. I honestly do not know how many credits transferred. I had some credits while I was in the military because I took some classes at different colleges while I was in the military, and all of those, I remember all of those were accepted. I think it was like 6 to 9 credits. But as far as credit for life experience, I don't know. I have worked with a few students, some of them receiving 14 was one of them, 21 or 23 was another. That was just based on military experience. And those 2 students that I'm thinking of right now, that was a conversation with the dean, more of like an interview. So after the packet was built with joint services transcript, resumes, things like that, that was a conversation with the dean, and they walked through that process. So I know that worked really well with them. The experience and transfer credit that I received at Midstate went into my next college as more of that package deal. So they did accept that experience and that credit as 60 full credits towards my bachelor's degree. And I was able to complete my bachelor's then in 1 year after my Midstate completion. So I was pretty excited for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And at Midstate, so I started my journey for my associate's degree in 2010, and I worked full-time at Midstate, and I was able to complete in 2012. So even working full-time and taking classes part-time, I was able to complete that much faster because I had that experience credit and the transfer credit. So it worked out quite well for me.
And
And
something to consider for people who have that life experience.
yeah, definitely.
How does one determine the competencies that are related with each class?
So each class has a syllabus and competencies associated with those, but those are not available just on our website. Those are more of like a back end type thing. But a good place to start would be to start on our website. We have all of our course descriptions, or in our program guides, we have all of those course descriptions that someone can just kind of take a peek and read and see if that class, that overall description sounds like something that they would have experience in. And if it does, that the next step would then be to get a hold of that syllabus, working with the advisor and or faculty.
Great. Alex, can you share a little bit about the veterans clubs and different organizations on campus?
Yeah, so we have a lot of student organizations. There are Student Life, Natasha Miller and Vic. They're amazing. They're always busy with our student clubs. One of those clubs is the Veterans Club. And in the past, they've met via telepresence. So no matter which campus you're on, you can partake in those meetings. And the premise of that club is to help those students connect with other veteran students. But they've had speakers come in like our county veteran service organizations and those, like people come in and speak to that group to make sure our veterans have a connection to their benefits, and it just brings them directly to the college so they don't have to go out and find them. So I found that really helpful, and it helps our staff have more of an understanding, because staff are also invited to those meetings, have an understanding of what those benefits are to help have those conversations with our veterans.
Thank you. Alex, do you mind, either you can share your screen or I can, to just bring up the financial aid page with Jamie's information? Maybe having that navigation would be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, mine says it can't be reached right now. Technology loves me. Can you share yours, Morgan?
Absolutely. While I do that, do you want to just talk a little bit about Jamie and her role at Midstate?
Yes, you bet. So all organizations who accept veterans benefits, and we accept, we have post 9/11, you have the Montgomery GI Bill, tuition assistance, all of the different benefits. We are required to have a certifying official, and we are lucky to have Miss Jamie Thompson as our certifying official. So she works very closely with all of our veterans to make sure they have the paperwork and the certifications that they need to both pay their tuition, but also get the benefits that are associated with that tuition. Sometimes that's a housing allowance or a book stipend or anything like that. So Ms. Jamie is the one that helps us with that at Midstate. Now she's well versed, she knows her stuff, but she may also direct you to contact your county veteran service person to just help you through some of that, because every veteran may have different benefits, and determining which one is best for you is really best left to those veteran service organizations.
So the phone number located right on our financial aid page here would connect you with Jamie, and she would be able to get you connected with your best resource.
Yes. And it's really good to have that conversation. You can apply to Midstate. There's no harm in that. But it's good to have that conversation before choosing which benefit you plan to use, because every benefit, again, is different. There's different regulations, and what may be good for your friend, your other veteran friend, it may be different for you. So have that conversation and reach out to the folks that really know, live and breathe that stuff every day. I know I did. I had to. I work at a college. I had to reach out and see what was best for me. So.
Yep, it's important to know where those resources are.
Yeah, and there's so many of them. I didn't know, and it's changing every day, and there's more every day. I did not know all of the different benefits and things that I could take advantage of as a veteran until I had that conversation. So.
Great. Are there any other questions for Alex? We'll just give it a few minutes. As we wait for a few questions, I'm going to share my screen again and talk a little bit more about the other webinars that we have coming up. So on our website, mstc.edu/stay on track, all of our websites that have, or our webinars that have already happened are recorded and have FAQs associated with them. So we've had 3 for high school students, and this is our second for adults. We also have some upcoming webinars. One, Something for Everyone, will focus on continuing education and the opportunities there, not only for personal enrichment, but also for fun. There's a lot of really cool things that Heather and her team are working on. So that's on Tuesday, May 12th, again, via Teams, and you can join the webinar using this button. And then contract training, so working with our workforce development and then our foundation and alumni to understand some of the opportunities that are available for businesses. That will be on Thursday over the lunch hour from 12:30 to 1:30. And again, all of the recordings will be here. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, or if you have questions for an outreach coordinator, our information is in this gray panel on the side, and you can either contact us or schedule an appointment right online. Our regional areas that we cover are located right here, so you can look and see kind of where you fall. But if you're uncertain, you can always use the email button at the top, and that will get you connected to our general account as well. All right. It won't let me. There we go. I was going to say you might just see that the rest of the time. All right, so we have no more questions. Alex, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you for watching and or participating tonight. Thank you to all of our servicemen and women for everything that you do and continue to do. I appreciate you for your service every day.
And thank you, Alex. We appreciate your time and your service. So
thank you.
Thanks for sharing your insight. Bye.